Good morning.
And good evening, beautiful people. We back at it like a crack addict. You know what I'm saying? We don't do crack though, thank God. So, anyways, Mose Knows
sure.
episode.
Best number in the building, number 7. This guy's crazy, yo. This is a crazy.
That's how you start the show, huh?
That's
how you
we
start the show.
That's insane.
Brother, man, excited for this interview that we have for y'all later in the podcast. My boy Chancellor Johnson, he works for the NBC station down in Houston. Of course, covers the Texans, covers the Rockets. He was actually at the national championship game between Michigan and Washington. Saw it with his own eyes, so we got to talk to him about not only the game, but the differences that he saw. Because Chance and I, we were actually at the Sugar Bowl last week, and so he got to see Penix at his best, and he got to see Penix against Michigan.
He was just a man.
Yeah. That kryptonite. That kryptonite got to him, man. So we got to talk to Chance about the differences about that, and of course, like the Texans making the wild card, winning the division. People didn't expect that when the year started. If you said the Texans were going to win the AFC South, you're lying. When the year first started,
everybody's expectations of this team, from a quarterback to wins to standout receivers. I mean, they just overachieved in every aspect. I mean, this is a crazy team. So they definitely got I'm definitely joining the bandwagon for this playoff.
What?
Deep playoff run.
We got a D on the bandwagon.
I mean, look, it's gonna be out of all the teams. I definitely think they're the most exciting team. You got your Dallases, you got your big name teams, but as far as Lamar, a team with a
Baltimore out there.
for sure. I definitely want to see that. But as far as like a underdog, I guess you can say, team playing the Browns, I would definitely love to see them beat them and go deep in the playoffs. But for sure, I'm riding the Lamar bandwagon. I definitely want to see all the he's not quarterbackies, what they got to say when he's the only one you got to cover, and see how that goes. So yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be exciting. Now, if the Texans win, they'll play the Ravens in the next round. So that would be that'll be a crazy matchup. But that interview with Chance is coming up pretty soon. Can't wait for y'all to hear that. A lot of great stuff, as always, with all our interviewees. Like, they're just awesome. I mean, that's what we do here for the Mose Knows podcast.
Great seven game stretch here.
And as we do for every podcast, Dion, how was your week? You had a good week? No?
This was a short week from the last time we podded, so not much happened. I've been working on this project for school, so that's been kind of stressing me out. But
proud of you.
We're gonna find a way and get it done. The project's due on the 14th, so got a next week or so to get it finished. But
yeah, not too much. Solo project?
No, solo dolo. But I could, of course.
I was hoping you would make someone else do the work.
Oh yeah, no, it was a group project. I definitely would be probably throwing out a little cash. Hey, just knock this out for us, man. But it's a solo dolo thing.
A little 20.
And of course I probably could have cheated, but I'm really this is involving a career change. So I'm really trying to get the information down. So I'm trying to take it serious and learn everything.
Look at you, bro.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Trying to be an adult.
Man, not a cheater. Hey, black man don't cheat.
Amen. What about you? What about you, bro? How was your short week?
The short week was short. It was a quick turnaround. Got to see Texas versus Texas Tech this week. First Big 12 game for the Texas men's basketball team. They didn't come out on the winning side of it. Pop Isaacs popped off for about 21 points on Texas, and Texas Tech got their lick back. So they came into the Moody Center and handled business. Can't blame them for that. You gotta give them the props where props due. And it's just a lot of things going on up in Lubbock right now with a lot of these allegations. Don't really want to dive into that, but the fact that they have all those allegations and they came down to the Moody Center and still won, I think that says a lot about that team. So we'll see if Rodney Terry can get back on track. And a lot of people are just jumping off the bandwagon right now for Texas men's basketball after one game in conference, which I'm like, hold your horses. Like, golly, dude, slow down.
Still got a lot of season left.
And last year they lost against Kansas State at home, and everyone seems to forgot that. And you saw how last year ended and went to Elite Eight. So everything doesn't ride on the first game of the conference. So I don't know. I think people, they always want to just throw everything under fire. When one loss, happens.
Everybody wants to. Yeah, everybody's finicky, but we definitely have to talk about Texas talk. We got to talk about all these guys leaving the University of Texas football team. It's
A ton, bro.
it's
A
a pretty
ton.
crazy list that you sent me, and that we've been seeing over social media. I mean, talk to us about these big losses to this Texas football team.
Yeah, I mean, let me just list them all out. Xavier Worthy, Jonathan Brooks, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, Keelan Robinson, Adonai Mitchell, Jalen Ford, Jatavian Sanders, Jordan Whittington, and Ryan Watts. If I didn't miss anybody, I mean, that's 1, 2,
Yeah,
3,
as of
4,
this
5,
pod,
6, 7, 8,
these are
9,
the names.
10.
I'm sure maybe we might have some more pop up, but from this list, is there anybody that shocked you that is leaving that you may have thought was going to stay? Or
I would think everyone on this list makes sense, right? Xavier, he's been projected to be a first-round draft pick, second-round draft pick all year long. Adonai Mitchell, we knew going into the year if he would go crazy this year and have a really good season, he will jump into that first round, second round, third round conversation, which he is now. Then, of course, Jatavian Sanders, number 2 tight end. I feel like I said that before the year started, that he was behind Brock Bowers from Georgia as the number 2 tight end in this draft class. And of course, like you saw the development of Tavondre Sweat, you saw the development of Byron Murphy. And of course, also the development of Jalen Ford that you saw last year, and he just carried on to this year. So everybody made sense to me. The only person that I was kind of on the fence about was Jonathan Brooks. And the only reason why is because you have the injury. You tore your ACL. Before the injury, of course, he was the number 1 running back on Mel Kiper's board. So it's like, okay, if he didn't get injured, of course he was going to leave. But since he did get injured, I was wondering, would that affect his draft stock at all? Would that affect his mindset to come back and prove to all the scouts that, like, hey, I am healthy? But I guess he plans on proving that at the combine. I know there's reports saying he should be healthy enough by training camp to be able to go. And so I don't know how much he's going to be able to do at the combine if he does accept that invite, or even at the pro day. I just don't know how the ACL is going to hold up and how he's going to prove that, like, I am healthy. So I don't know his timetable, and that's why I'm saying that. I don't know the recovery timetable right now for him. And so that was the only person I kind of had questions about, because was he going to be healthy enough by the time the draft comes so he can get that number 1 running back rating? And so I guess the people that he talked to, the people that's in his corner, they believe he will be ready in time, and they believe he will be able to show that off. So props to JB to be able to get that bread. And I think he deserves it. I mean, he was arguably the best running back in the nation before he got hurt. And so for him to be able to still have that leverage over the rest of that running back draft class, it's awesome to see. And I hope he succeeds, because, man, he's one hell of a player. So, yeah, he was kind of the only one. But, yeah, I think everyone else makes sense.
And then when we talk about this list, I don't see Quinn's name. When we talk about mindset, I see recently that boy, he's not worried about football at all right now. He's chilling, relaxing.
Yeah, that boy killing deers. What? He out there killing deers with the bow. You saw the bow?
Yeah, no, yeah, that was the part I was shocked.
That's crazy.
Out of all the okay, he's doing it old classic style. Okay. Yeah, no, he's really one of them ones. He's really one of them ones. Do you have anything on Quinn? Any news, any reports, or anything that could lean to where he's thinking about going?
Yeah, I mean, Quinn's camp keeps everything close to the vest. And I think right now the question is, does he want to be considered the number 1 quarterback in the class, or just another quarterback in a class? And I think that's what he has to ponder, because this draft class for quarterbacks this year with Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., Caleb Williams, Drake May, I mean, the list can go on and on. I mean, maybe J.J. McCarthy from Michigan now, since he got the championship, will he declare for the draft? Who knows? But there's a lot of great quarterbacks coming out. And so that's what happened a couple weeks ago, when the rumors started to circulate and some publications brought out, like, yeah, Quinn is highly considering coming back to Texas. And I think that's why, because after he got hurt, he lost a couple games, he lost some stats. He wasn't playing that well anyways during the Big 12 conference play. Of course, the big game was against Bama. He had a great game against Oklahoma after those first 2 interceptions, but he was kind of middle ground the rest of the year until you got to Texas Tech, until you got to Oklahoma State. And so I felt like his stock fell a lot compared to what he was expecting coming to this year. And so, yeah, I expect him to come back this year. That's why I feel like he's been kind of hands off with this whole process and quiet and out in the woods, taking care of business, getting some deer meat, You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's why, because his plans is to come back to Texas. That's what my thought process is. That's what I feel like would be the smart decision for him. And especially with Arch Manning behind him, having another year where he can teach Arch and also have some competition though, because Sarkisian loves competition. And so Quinn coming back doesn't mean it's his job. Like I do highly suspect this to be a quarterback battle going into spring. If Quinn does decide to come back, I don't think Sarkisian is promising this job to him, which of course there's like, yes, you have some leverage. You've been in the offense for about 3 years now compared to Arch, who's only been in it for a year. So of course you have that over Arch. So you would expect Quinn to play better in spring ball, to play better when it comes to later in the year when it's time to make a decision about who will be QB1. But you still got to earn it, you know. And so I think that challenge is going to be enticing to Quinn, and I think he's going to step up to the challenge. And you know, a lot of people have him as the Heisman favorite next year if he does come back. And so I just don't see how you pass that up if you know now that you're probably going to be quarterback 5 or quarterback 4 coming back in this draft. So if you come back to Texas, you could be quarterback 1 in class of 2025. So I don't know. I just feel like if you're Quinn, come back. You have your whole offensive line except for Christian Jones coming back, so you know you're going to be protected. It's just how can you use the new weapons around you, because the guys I named off that are going to the draft, those are the top 5 receivers on this roster. So you're going to have a whole new receiving core, and you got to get that rapport with them. And I think that's going to prove how great Quinn really is if he can be able to build that chemistry with the new group of receiving core.
Yeah, dope. And I mean, we do have a couple guys that are still staying. Did you want to talk about the 2 that you got on the list?
Yeah, Barron Sorrell and Alfred Collins, they both announced they're going to stay. And I think that's the effect of Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, right? Because Tavondre and Byron, before this year started, they weren't projected as high as they are now. And a lot of people are wondering who's going to be that man in the middle. We saw Byron play well last year, but not to what he played this year. And same exact thing for Tavondre Sweat. And so you're banking on, hey, they developed in a year. They were able to show I can be a dominant interior defender. So now Barron Sorrell, Alfred Collins, they're going to try to make that same step and take a new leap when it comes to how dominant they are in that defensive line. And honestly, that's something that messed up Texas in the Sugar Bowl against Washington. If you watch the game with the Huskies versus Michigan, the reason why Penix wasn't Penix in the Sugar Bowl compared to the national championship is because they had pressure on them all night. Now, the difference is Texas was getting pressure, except they got pressure when they blitz, when they rush 5 or 6 players, like Jalen Ford on a blitz, David Bendo on the blitz. But with Michigan, they could just rush 4, and they were solid. And so I think that would be the difference for Texas and for Alfred Collins and Barron Sorrell to prove that, I can be a dominant force in that D-line, and you're banking on Coach Bo Davis to develop them the way that he developed Murphy and Sweat. And I think they trust and they see what happened to Sweat and what happened to Murphy, and they're going to bank on themselves and say, hey, if I work as much as they worked and I trust what Bo Davis is teaching me, I can take that next step and become a first-round, second-round pick in this next year's draft. So I think it's a smart decision.
No, this is crazy. So with this list that you gave me, and these are a lot of big name guys for this Texas team. Do you have any insight or your thoughts on the next group of guys coming in, whether it be high school recruits or people from the transfer portal? Do you think they'll be able to fill the big shoes? I know you said that coach likes to play freshmen, or he's not scared to play freshmen. Do you think some of the recruits coming in will be able to, step in and fill these big shoes that they're going to be filling?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both, Dion. I think it's a mixture of transfers and recruits, because this is why you do it. This is why the transfer portal is so important. And you've seen how Coach Sarkisian has used the transfer portal to fill in the gaps that you may not be able to fill immediately through recruiting when it comes to the high school recruits, because they may not be ready yet. So like a wide receiver, number 1 wide receiver, he knew Adonai was leaving. He knew Xavier Worthy was leaving. So do you trust a young Jonte Cook to step up? Do you trust a young Ryan Niblett, a DeAndre Moore? I don't know if you do. And so you go out and you go get a Matthew Golden from U of H, and you bring him in. And I think that's going to be what you see with a lot of these different positional groups is that, yes, we have people developing behind them, but you still want a seasoned vet in college terms that's been in that's been in college football for a little bit to know, okay, this is how you handle certain situations. And you saw the benefits of it with Adonai Mitchell this year. Like, you go out and get Adonai, he's a perfect complement to Xavier Worthy, boosts his draft stock. And so it's a win-win on both sides. And so, yes, you're right, though, when it does come to the high schoolers, Sarkisian does love to use young true freshmen, and I think you saw that in the Sugar Bowl. Late in the game, you had 3 true freshmen playing: Anthony Hill, Malik Muhammad, and Derek Williams. In a pivotal part of the game, you're trusting these 18, 19-year-olds to win the game for you. And that's because they earned it. They earned it, and they have that talent. And so when I see all these people leaving in the secondary, when it comes to like the transfer portal, like Jalen Catalon or Keenan Crawford, or even Ryan Watts leaving for the draft, they have guys like Derek Williams that's going to try to take that next step next year. Malik Muhammad, who's going to try to take that step next year. But you're bringing in a Waco product like Kobe Black, who has a lot of expectations. The kid from Florida, Xavier Filsaime. Hope I pronounced his name right. My apologies if I didn't. But then, of course, those are the 2 high school recruits. But then you talk about Andrew Makuba transferring from Clemson, Austin kid. And so that's a prime example, right, D, of transfers, recruiting, working hand in hand to fill the depth.
That sounds like a great mix.
Yeah, it's a great mix, because then it's like these transfers coming in, they're seeing, okay, I just got to spend 1 year at Texas. Just spend 1 year at Texas, and I can go to the league. And I'm going to boost my draft stock. And that's going to start going around the nation, and it's like, hey, y'all, if you go to Texas, like, we'll get you out of here in 1 year. If you have 1 more year eligibility, come to UT. We'll get you out of here and get to the league. And I think if you build that rapport alongside the great recruiting classes that they're having, that's how you build this kind of dynasty like you see at Georgia, like you see at Alabama. It's not just that they recruit well, it's that they also get the right pieces that already have some type of experience to complement them and then help develop the young kids that are there right now. So it's a great mixture that Texas has right now. And I just can't wait to see in those different positions, though, like the secondary and like the wide receiver core, who's going to step up, because someone's going to have to with these new faces. And I'm looking at a Jonte Cook from DeSoto. He has some bright spots this past year, and he learned a lot from Xavier Worthy. He was like Xavier Worthy's mini-me from what we've been talking to them about. And to see him make that step will be super cool. And I'm just excited to see what he can bring to the table. Of course, even a Gunnar Helm, who has to step up now for Jatavian Sanders leaving. Now you got to fill in that tight end spot that he proved in the Oklahoma game. Hey, I can do a couple things too with my hands, and I can move around the field and have different route trees as well. I'm just not a blocking tight end. So yeah, it's a lot of people that's going to have to step up, but this is what it takes to build a dynasty, right, Dion? Like, there's a reason why with Alabama, there's a new name every year. There's a new name that pops up because they've been waiting in the wings, they've been developing, and then it's their time to shine for 1 year or 2 years, and they do so. And it's like a factory. And so Texas, they're building that factory right now, and I think they have a solid foundation. Now they got to put the decor up, and make sure it looks nice. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this program can turn into, especially with the transfers and the recruits coming in. And I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon.
And all the guys you listed, is there any one guy that you're like really high on that's going to be filling in the shoes for, a lot of these guys that are leaving, that you may think like, okay, if he gets the chance, of course he earned it. He's going to have a breakout year. One of the newer guys. It doesn't have to be anybody.
Yeah. Great question. I mean,
I know it's early.
I know
it's
early.
Say, the season.
And to be honest, but
if there's anybody,
the guy that comes to mind though is CJ Baxter. And I get it. Like, people may say, well, he's a starter this year. Like, how is he a new guy? But let's be honest. Once CJ started this year, played against Rice, played against Bama, got nicked up a little bit. Jonathan Brooks took over, and he took the running back room over, and he was the guy for Texas. And so you have that time period where JB was the number one running back. And then once JB gets hurt, tears his ACL, CJ Baxter comes back into the fold as a true number one, but also he's splitting carries with Keelan Robinson, with Jaden Blue. And so now going into next season, my expectation is that CJ will be the guy going into training camp, going to spring ball. How does he take that? How does he acknowledge and grow with this new role? And I think he's going to do really well in that role. You got to see it in the Sugar Bowl. When he starts it in the biggest state of his career, he goes off. He had one fumble,
7 yards to carry.
He had a big time third down catch that had to get called back because of a holding call. And so I just think that CJ's ready to take that next step to be the true number one running back for Texas. But I also would say the same thing about Jaden Blue in that running back room, because Jaden Blue also had a great Sugar Bowl. And so that's going to be the battle I'm excited to see. Who from those two names is going to become that guy for Texas, because we know this offense doesn't go without a running back being a bell cow. And Sarkisian's been big about, hey, I've had a 1,000-yard rusher every single season I've been a head coach, and he prided himself on that. And so I'm excited to see which running back will be that 1,000-yard rusher next season. Will it be CJ Baxter or Jaden Blue, which I think are both great options for Texas.
Yeah, and I think for sure, I know that the running back position in the NFL is lost its value, but in college, that is definitely something that is extremely important. Is there anything else that you have to say about,
this offseason so
Texas?
far? Yeah, I mean, not really. I'm just waiting on Quinn. We're all just waiting on Quinn to make a decision. Like I said, I think he's going to come back. I think that's my gut feeling. Going to come back and try to prove that he can be the number one quarterback in the draft class of 2025. Shedeur Sanders may have something to say about that. So I'm excited to see. But other than that, I think this team is ready for the SEC. Watching Michigan, though, scary. That's a scary team. They got to play them week 2. So that's going to be a matchup that I'm excited in Ann Arbor, going up there and having the Longhorns face the Wolverines. And so that's going to be a slug it out fest, though. Man, it's going to be going at it in the trenches. Excited for that one. But it's going to be real fun. It's going to be real fun. But, yeah, they're ready for the SEC. They have the depth. They have the talent. They just got to put it all together. And, man, just prove to the nation that this wasn't a one-year fluke. A lot of the guys that are leaving on this list to the NFL draft, we talked to them after the Sugar Bowl. And Tavondre Sweat, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Jay Witt, they all said the same thing, that when we asked them, what do you hope that the younger guys took away from the season from y'all and what they learned from y'all? They all told us that, man, we hope that they looked at the way that we trained and we prepared, and we hope that they take that next step for us. They want them to succeed more than what this year's team did. And so I'm excited to see if they're able to accomplish that, because, yeah, there'll be a lot of new faces on the field for Texas next year, but I think those faces will be prepared and ready to prove why they got that scholarship from UT. So, yeah, that's all, though. Like, a lot of things waiting and seeing for Quinn, but other than that, good luck to everybody that's going to the draft. And it must be cool, though, because last year, half the amount of guys got drafted compared to this list of 10. And who knows if more people get added. But if Texas is able to get all these guys drafted, that's going to raise their stock even more when it comes to recruits, saying that, like, hey, we got 10 guys going to the league.
Texas is the place to go.
We got 10 guys going to the league. That's what Texas is saying. And so how do you argue against that if you're a recruit? If you're a transfer trying to do a one-and-done type year, like, hey, look what Adonai Mitchell did. He came over for a year, got the job done, and got out. You can do the same thing. So, yeah, excited for the future of Texas, and can't wait to see how they're able to kind of use this momentum from this year to project it onto next season. But
yeah, it sounds like Texas is gonna have a little bit for everything you're looking for. If you're trying to go to the league, Texas got it. If you want to stay a couple years, be under somebody, you can do that. If you're somebody that, hey, if you were looking to be a one and done, we got it for you. And talking about can have it any way you like. Michigan definitely put it on the boys.
Slap him, put it on bro. Have Penix walking off the field like he's a 70-year-old grandpa, bro.
He looked his age.
He looked his age. You're hilarious. You're hilarious. 6-year pro in the college football ranks. Man, holding his midsection. Man, like he looked defeated, bro. Battered and beaten. And I'm just like, sheesh. What the hell did Texas do wrong? Like,
yeah.
Oh man, but that's a whole nother story.
I think when it comes to a month to prepare for a team and a week,
it's different.
You can kind of tell that it's a.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. It definitely is different. So yeah, you're totally right about that. Less time to prepare against a really great defense for Michigan, and we actually talked to Chancellor Johnson about that because my boy Chance was at the game in NRG with his own eyes, got to see Michael Penix struggle. He also got to see Michigan dominate, and the running game was phenomenal. Defense was impenetrable, and he got to watch it close up. So we were able to talk to him about that. Of course, talk to him about the Texans making the playoffs, winning the AFC South Division, and dude's about to be a married man pretty soon. So got to chop it up about that as well. Yeah, getting spicy, but yeah, excited for this interview. Hope y'all enjoy it. And here's Chance Johnson. All right, everybody. So now I'm joined by my main man, the Brody, Chance Johnson, sports anchor and reporter for KPRC down in Houston. Arizona State grad. I know I got to say that because y'all love talking about it so much. So forks up. That's what y'all say over there. But what's up, bro? How you doing?
You got to talk about it when it's the best journalism school in the country. Like,
here he goes.
You have to mention it. It's, it's part of the requirement. That's all.
Off to a great start. I love this.
I know. I love it too. Now, mind you, I have no dog in a fight. I went to UT Arlington. We're not known for anything except engineering and nursing. Let me shout out the nursing program. But, I didn't go to Syracuse. I didn't go to Northwestern. So you got to fight those battles. All right. I don't got to. So we'll see how that goes. But you got to see a lot over these last couple of weeks, bro. I saw you down in New Orleans 2 weeks ago. You were covering the Sugar Bowl. And then last night, we're filming this on Tuesday, actually. Last night on Monday, you got to see the national championship at NRG Stadium. I saw you tweet out like the energy is immaculate, and so can you just describe to me like what the vibe was like inside of NRG?
Yeah, it was incredible, man. I've been covering the Houston Texans going back to the NFL route, obviously all season long. I've had an opportunity to be there for some really big games, and I had not seen anything like that in that building all year. I would say it was pretty much dominated by Michigan fans. Washington fans definitely showed up. You could not miss the amount of purple that was in the stands, but plenty of chance of Go Big Blue were filling up NRG Stadium. Hail to the victors. They were partying, they were turning up, and they had great reason as well. Of course, the way they really controlled the game from start to finish with the amount of rushing lanes, and defensively how they were able to slow down Michael Penix Jr. But overall, it was a fantastic atmosphere to be in, and there's really nothing like college football, especially on the highest stage like that.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about Penix because you brought him up. You got to see him in person at the Sugar Bowl 2 weeks ago with us, and then you got to see him again in the national championship. 2 different Penixes, though.
Yeah,
I mean, against Texas, he looked unstoppable. Against Michigan, he could barely walk off the field. So what do you feel like the differences was between the Sugar Bowl and the national championship for Penix?
Yeah, you just hit it right on the head there. It was night and day, the differences between the Michael Penix Jr. we saw against the University of Texas and the Michael Penix Jr. we saw against Michigan. And obviously, Michigan has the better defense versus the Longhorns, but when you were there for the Sugar Bowl, he couldn't miss, right? Like, he looked like, man, like he's supposed to be round 2? Are you sure this guy's not a top 5, top 10 pick? And then we looked at him yesterday on Monday, last Monday, in the championship game, and it was like, yeah, I see why, maybe his stock's a little bit down. He wasn't nearly as accurate. He didn't have a ton of time in the pocket either. The Michigan Wolverines defense was closing in on him, and he just seemed like out of sync, right? Like, he had, of course, that big miscommunication there with Rome Odunze on that 4th down play that really could have changed maybe the way the outcome of the ball game as well. But I still like MPJ's potential prospect at the NFL level. I wouldn't take him in the first round just because of the medicals. Like, if I'm a GM, I'm not taking him with the top 10 pick for a guy that has 2 ACL injuries, also had a season-ending shoulder injury as well. But like I said, night and day. But I think he'd still be a really good prospect at the NFL level.
Yeah, I like the way that he kind of managed to stay in the game until about that 4th quarter.
Yep.
That Michigan defense was nice, but they were still in it. They're only down by a touchdown. But, man, those running lanes, you posted a picture. Yeah, you posted a picture of the wide open gap that Donovan Edwards had. Like, seeing that in person and seeing how built this offensive line was for Michigan, how dominant were they really, when you got to see them with your own eyes?
It was funny because I walked away from that game thinking about, man, if you're a Washington Huskies fan or you're Washington Huskies on the coaching staff, you have to also think about, hey, we're going from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten next year, and we'll have to continue to deal with this for the foreseeable future. Because when you play against not just Michigan, but Ohio State or Penn State or Wisconsin, they're going to run the ball. They're going to have these 6'5", 6'6" guys, in the offensive line that are 250, 300, and you have to be able to match their physicality. And so you're not playing, the Oregons with a little bit more finesse, a little bit more speed on the outside. You're not playing the Arizonas, or I could even say the Arizona States, the teams that aren't as physical as what you see in cold weather in December and in November that you have to go on the road thousands of miles away and have to deal with. And so that was a reality check for not just the Washington coaches, but for all the teams coming from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. And this is what you're going to have to deal with on a nightly basis because, obviously Michigan has the talent just throughout their team. But, yeah, a team like Wisconsin is going to punch you in the face for a majority of their ball game. They're going to run the ball a bunch. Same thing with Penn State. So this is something that they will have to really think about as they move to the Big Ten next year.
Think about reneging on that contract, huh? Like,
maybe too late for that.
Maybe this isn't the best choice for us. Was there when we're just wrapping up kind of the game, because we kind of see that even though it looked close number wise, it wasn't close on the field at all. How would you rate this whole would this be your first college football experience? How would you rate this whole thing?
Man, well, as far as playoffs go, obviously, it was no Clemson versus Bama with Deshaun Watson back there leading the charge, the game that went down to the last quarter. Certainly no UT versus USC, in the Rose Bowl back in, 2006. I know what podcast I'm on. Come on now. I know. Right? So there was no Vince Young back there. We saw J.J. McCarthy. I think he threw 18 passes, completed 10 of them, and they still won by double digits. But in general, it was definitely fun. I was out there for the Sugar Bowl as well. I would say the Sugar Bowl was a much better game, of course, right? Like with the way that ball game ended, it would have been much nicer to have seen Texas there, just to see that Texas crowd take over NRG Stadium, and I think they probably would have put up a better fight just as far as playing styles than Washington did. But overall, look, I can't complain, man. It was fun to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're definitely right, because I remember we were texting the group chat, and I mentioned something like this was the best matchup for Michigan. I mean, to face a team like Washington, who could barely stop the Texas running game. The only reason why Texas didn't run the ball is because they were down by so much, and they just didn't have the game script. But if Texas would have faced that Michigan team, I would have liked to see it too, because we're talking about probably the best run defensive team in the country versus the best running offense in the country. So that would have been a dope matchup, but you got to win games to get there. So no excuses. Congrats to Washington for getting to that spot. They deserved it. But also, of course, congrats to Michigan for all they've been through, too. I mean, what a year. Jim Harbaugh missing the first game of the season because he was giving a burger out to a recruit. And then
stay on the field, man.
Couldn't stay in the field. Connor Stallion situation. And they were able to persevere through so much. It just felt like their season, in my opinion. And for them to accomplish that at this point of the year with so much taintedness, I guess you could say, and like people are going to put an asterisk behind this championship. I say F that. Like, I think they earned it. This team had nothing to do with that, and they proved why they're 15-0. So
yeah, you definitely still have to go out and you still have to win the games, right? And so even without Harbaugh, they could have easily have lost a couple of their matchups they were in, and they had opportunities where they played obviously against Ohio State. That was that's the game, and they came out on top there. They handled business against Alabama, so it's hard for me to take away from what they were able to do. But I do want to go back to your earlier question when you asked me about how big those rushing lanes were, and the other thing that I wanted to mention was that Donovan Edwards left that game making some extra money going to the NFL, in April soon, because obviously a lot of the conversation has been about Blake Corum, and deservedly so. He's had a fantastic year, but to see the speed of Donovan Edwards was certainly impressive. And so, I know you keep up with the Texans as well. I wouldn't be mad to see him and his type of speed and agility with C.J. Stroud handing him the ball next year potentially for the after the NFL draft.
And I know you're good at TV. Oh, stop it. Stop it. When you going to throw David Pierce down like that?
You got to go, bro.
Oh, man. That's crazy. But Donovan Edwards would be a nice little pickup, though. I do think he fits the offensive scheme for Bobby Slowick if he stays. And, I was going to say, you're great for TV because you know how to do little segues like that. Talk about Texans and Michigan. You cover a former Michigan product, Nico Collins. You actually had a Connect Four battle with him at training camp, and then where the season on the line, needing to get this win to get into the playoffs. Nico Collins goes out there and goes for 195 yards against the Colts. Man, just talk to me about, one, how did you lose that Connect Four battle? And I saw the video. You had a chance to block him, and you just missed it. But then also, what did it mean to And how cool is it to kind of see how before the year Nico talked about if he stayed healthy, he thinks he could be a viable number one option, and then see that happen at the end of this season, last game of the year, you're able to trust him to be that number one wide receiver.
Yeah, so first off, I feel a little disrespected. We had a clear agreement before we hopped on this podcast that we said we weren't going to talk about it. And you just clearly just decided to throw all of that away and still want to do it anyways.
I didn't want your authentic self.
No, it's cool. It's cool because you know I know where you live. You know I know where you're. It's cool. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it off there.
Got no block.
No, right. On a serious note, though, yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was, if you go back and watch it, it's on my Twitter. We both had opportunities to win, and we both missed it. And it's funny how you can kind of go back and see that. But it was fun, right? And so, looking back on that interview, on a serious note, and seeing how he was saying he always thought that he could be a wide receiver one, and that he just had to stay healthy. And so we're seeing that, this year. And so when the team needed him the most was no Tank Dell, who's obviously he's going to miss the rest of the season, with no Robert Woods, with no Noah Brown. So they're missing their number 3 and number 4 wide receiver, and no other Texas wide receiver had more than one catch. Dalton Schultz, the tight end, had more than one catch, but nobody else had more than one catch. And all Nico Collins did was go out and have 9 catches for 195 yards and a touchdown. He showed up and when the team needed him the most. And so, you always hear about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, but clearly C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins have found that great connection. And so he is – I
didn't even think about that.
It's ironic, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Yep. And so, when you talk about the wide receiver ones in this league, I think Nico Collins has proved and earned that this year. Not just because it's not just this game. He's had multiple big games where he showed up, and he's finished above a number of some of the elite receivers that we are kind of accustomed to talking about as far as receiving yards. So it's been a big breakout year for Nico Collins, and they'll need a lot more of that against the Browns coming up this week.
Yeah, I see him having kind of a CeeDee Lamb trajectory, with CeeDee Lamb coming in, kind of starting off good, but and the next year really elevating and having to answer those questions of can he be that number one receiver. And we've seen CD this year go nuts. So I can see Nico doing the same thing. If you're a fantasy owner, he definitely should be in your really early picks, because him and CJ,
they nasty. They nasty.
Yeah, and you got to assume that Tank may miss, first couple games next season. It's probably going to continue.
Yeah. Tank actually, he will be back. He'll be clear for by the time the offseason starts.
Okay, bet.
But going back to Nico, it is interesting because the narrative around Nico, his first 2 years in the league, was he's just a deep ball, throw it up and let him go get it type of guy. And he's proven that he can run the full route tree. And the thing is, for a guy of his size, he's very agile. He'll make you miss in the open field. And then if he's running down the sidelines and you think he's going to step out of bounds, he will run you over. And he's shown, I remember he did that during the preseason. I remember after the game, I went up to him like, bro, it's just the preseason. Like, you didn't have to run bro over like that. He's like, nah, he was a rookie. I had to make him pay, right? And so now, even look at the last game against the Indianapolis Colts, he took a bubble screen and turned it into, I think it was like 2nd and 10, and he picked up 12 yards, and he ran over 2 dudes on his way there. So he's going to get paid when his contract is up, not this year, but the following year.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I know his contract is coming up next year. So do you think he solidified that contract this year? Or do you think he also still has to prove something to stay healthy next year to get that extended contract with the Texans?
Yeah, we all know this NFL is what have you done for me lately type of league. But I think the connection that he's built with C.J. Stroud and Stroud and his wide receivers are really close. And Stroud says, hey, I want Nico Collins to get it done. I'm sure the Texans will oblige. They have a lot of cap space this summer, right? And they don't have to address Nico right now if they don't want to. They can afford to wait another year. But between Nico Collins, they'll get Tank Dell back next year as well, and then they're going to add to that wide receiver room, and they'll add a really good playmaker too, not just the Robert Woods type of guy, respectfully, but there's T. Higgins out there on the market. The question is, do you want to spend
D-Hop?
Right. Well, D-Hop's out there. The one I've been hearing kind of more connected has been Mike Evans, because obviously that Houston type connection, and so Does he want to spend another year in the rest of his career in Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, or do you want to come home and play with C.J. Stroud? Or, of course, that's free agent options. You can also address it in the draft. I've seen Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, linked to the Texans back of that first round. If Xavier Worthy is there, they can use another speedster. So there's a lot of different ways they can add to that wide receiver room, but I think it'll be led by Nico Collins and Tank Dell next year.
Well, can I ask you then, because you got to see Adonai and Xavier in person, who do you think fits that scheme and what the Texans
A.D. Mitchell
better?
A.D. Mitchell.
Oh, wow,
A.D.
fast. Okay. Why do you golly,
All
right. Let
right.
me get the question out.
Okay.
All right, so say less. So why Adonai? Why do you feel like Adonai?
So here's the thing. I like Xavier Worthy, but I was watching him that last game, and not just the last game either. And as explosive as he is, I don't like how sometimes he can go missing. I don't like that. Like, where was Xavier when the team needed him the most? And so with AD. AD didn't have the greatest of games either, but he did step up late in that second half, came through with a touchdown as well. I think if Quinn Ewers puts the ball in the money, they could have potentially won that ball game. But I really like AD's route running. I like his physicality, and I think he probably fits that system a little bit better as far as run blocking as well. But once again, like with Xavier Worthy's speed, I don't want to just discount Xavier Worthy like that. I definitely want to do that because he would be good in the system, but because that speed kills, right? And so, but to me though, I would go A.D. Mitchell as of now, and right, and now mind you, we're still in January yet. We haven't even got to February. We haven't seen combine. Maybe I'll watch a little more tape, and I'll be like, maybe not. But as of right now, I'd go A.D. Mitchell for right now.
Okay, that's it. That's a conscious take.
Hey. Didn't even have to think about it.
Hey, I'm about to say he must have been thinking about this at the Sugar Bowl. Then we kind of talked about it though, Chance. Yep. Though we talked about how the similarities between Tank Dell and Xavier, but Tank is just can run the full route tree, compared to Xavier, who can do the same thing. It's just like two small guys with speed. You want to add someone else that's a possession receiver like an A.D. Mitchell that can complement a speed guy like Tank Dell and a rising superstar like Nico Collins. So I kind of agree with you. And of course, like the hometown connection means something. I feel like being from Houston and playing for the Texans, it will mean a lot to Adonai Mitchell. And I think that's going to raise his play even more if he was to get chosen by the Texans in the draft. But
the interesting thing is to see like where does he land? Because I have seen him mocked to the Texans with that Browns pick that they own in the back of the first round. But I'm also seeing him as like wide receiver 7, which would put him as maybe as I've even seen him as late as a third round. It's weird to see. Yeah, so he can raise his stock. Of course, in the combine, the college football season came to a close Monday, but we've seen guys jump and also fall throughout the combine process with interviews and things like that.
And so, you brought him up a little bit a while ago, but I just want to, of course, we got to talk about C.J. Stroud, and we know what he can do on the field. And heck, man, the moment bright lights are on, primetime game, first ever primetime game, first play, you throw it 75 yards to Nico Collins. Like, what a way to start your primetime career. But I just want to talk about things that he's doing off the field. And when I listen to him talk, when I hear these press conferences, I'm like, I would play for this guy and I would run through a wall for this guy. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective, you've been to all these press conferences in person. And so is there a particular press conference or availability that you thought like, oh, this guy's a leader and he can lead this franchise?
Yeah, it actually wasn't so much hearing from C.J. Stroud as far as at the presser. Because when you're a rookie, most guys are always going to say the right things about you, but just talking to the guys a little bit more, I'd say whether it was off the record or on the record, they just always had great things to say about Stroud. And so, once again, what else are they supposed to say? But it did feel different. And like, hey, no, like seriously, like he can be the guy. And so, it's funny enough, when Stroud first got here during training camp, of course, you can remember, like, he wasn't automatic. It wasn't until literally after the last preseason game that he was named the starter. And so Stroud talked about how he wanted to earn that role. And everybody knew, look, you were drafted with the number 2 overall pick. You are the franchise. You are designated to be the franchise QB. But he said, hey, look, I want to go out there and earn it. And so kept his head down. He stayed humble. And so, and obviously, look at him now. And so, one thing I will say is he's always had a great relationship with every last one of his teammates, from the third string defensive lineman to Laramie Tunsil. Like they are like this. And so, he's had them over at his crib. He's hosted events for them, all that type of good stuff to kind of continue to build that bond. And so, they said earlier we can do something special. And a lot of times, Once again, guys say that all the time, but they actually believed it, and here they are as divisional champions.
That's awesome. And, we talk about CJ Stroud's off the field, I guess you could say, characteristics. Dion actually had a question about something he said off the field in a recent podcast.
I just want to know. I just want to know how you feel about, as great as this guy is, amazing. Could possibly be rookie of the year. The one of his just character flaws I could see. The quote is, "Cali girls are way better than Houston girls." I just wanted to get your take on this quote of his on a podcast that he did earlier this year.
I think you pretty much summed it up. It's definitely a character flaw. CJ Stroud's been sensational on the football field, off the football field, but he has a the lowest touchdown to turnover ratio in the league. But it's comments like that where I really do have to question his judgment, right? Like
he said it's not even close. He said it's not even close.
Now, funny enough, I actually have had an opportunity to talk to CJ about that.
Oh.
And so his reasoning was that he feels like in Cali he can get a little bit more different flavors. And as far as personalities, we're talking about more so like personalities.
Yeah, of course.
And different types of vibes.
Yeah.
Versus Houston, which I understood what he was getting at, and also too, you got to think about, listen, the type of people that he might be around versus the type of people that we're around are different, right? And they might be after different things versus when we meet somebody, it's a little bit different. So I'll leave it at that. I think if you use your context clues, you know what I mean there. But yeah, we're gonna have to work on that. We're gonna have to work on that for sure.
Hey, hopefully Tank Dell can show him. Tank Dell knows the ways around the lane. He went to U of H. He knows Third Ward. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knows what's up. So
they hang out a bunch. I'm sure he'll put him in good positions to succeed.
Yeah, and he's been succeeding on the field for sure. When it comes to CJ and his I guess non-character flaws, because he's a hell of a quarterback, man. He has brought this spark to this franchise, and you were a part of the organization. Well, not a part of it, but you covered the organization last year with all the turmoil that was happening. And so with that being said, what do you feel like is the biggest difference in this locker room from this year to last year?
It's CJ Stroud. Mika Ryans, he is up there for Coach of the Year, and he's done a great job of changing the culture. But you can't win ball games unless you have a quarterback. And so, if you talk to the guys, they'll continue to rave about the job that Mika Ryans has done. But once again, they'll say, hey, it starts and it ends with 7. And for you to have a rookie QB to come in and put himself in MVP conversations, at least midway through the season, and help a team go from last in the division, dead last, to first in his rookie season, and put up the numbers that he had. So he had the stats and he had the wins. Once again, it starts and it ends with CJ Stroud, but of course you got to give credit to DeMeco Ryans. It's not just him, right? Like, the Texans have players, so it's more than CJ Stroud. They have some talented players on defense, whether that's Jonathan Grenard, who is going to get paid this year. He's an upcoming free agent. Will Anderson Jr., of course, going back to back, hitting on their first round picks. Derek Stingley Jr. It was interesting to see how the conversation over the past 2 years, over the past last year
has flipped, right?
Sauce Gardner. Right now, it's flipped as far as, hey, man, Derek Stingley Jr. might have been the better pick. And, of course, he was drafted one slot ahead of him. Steven Nelson, to me, I don't think he gets enough credit. It's really hard finding one good cornerback in this league, right? You better have yourself one, but it's hard finding those. To have 2 good ones, and Steven Nelson, if you need to slide him over in a pinch to guard the wide receiver one, he can do that as well. He's a free agent. Bringing over Dalton Schultz, some of the pickups that Nick Caserio has made over on the waiver wire as well, picking up Tennessee's defensive tackle, signing Sheldon Rankins on a 1-year deal. I can continue to go on and on. So it's more than just C.J. Stroud, but once again, between C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, that's how you've been able to see a culture shift here in Houston.
What's up, D?
Okay, and with this culture shift, was there a moment this season, a game, a certain play that you thought to yourself, like, okay, they might really be able to make some noise, secure a number 1 seed, go to the playoffs? Was there a moment this season where you thought that?
Well, I would say it was in back-to-back weeks, actually. I think
Mm,
if you go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, for them to, of course, we all know C.J. Stroud, 46 seconds, leading the Texans down the field to score a touchdown and win that ball game, that was huge.
yeah.
Not necessarily for just picking up a win was big, but on the flip side, we've just seen the Houston Texans be on the wrong side of games like that pretty much since the day I've been born. And so they've had
That's
moments
facts.
where
That's
where
facts.
they've won, but it's like most of the time you expect the worst. But that's not the case anymore under CJ Stroud.
Mm.
So that was a huge win to do that at home in front of your home crowd against a solid Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. They
And
won,
I
of
will say
course.
this, Chance, with that game particularly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went down the field and scored the drive
Yeah.
before. So it was a
Yep.
prime example, like you were talking about, a game
Mm-hmm.
where the Texans lost the lead late in the fourth
Mm-hmm.
quarter. They're not going to be able
Mm-hmm.
to come back and win it. But you're right. The guy that's a signal caller now, you got all the confidence in the world that he can go down the field with any amount of time on the clock.
Absolutely. So you had the confidence that he could go and do it, and lead you back on a comeback. But he still had to prove that he could do it on the road in a
Mm.
big game in a hostile environment. And the very next week, he goes to Cincinnati and outduels Joe Burrow. He looked like the best quarterback on the field there. And Joe Burrow is considered a top five, at worst, a top five QB. And so it was then for him to string together back to back weeks, beating the Buccaneers in a late drive for less than a minute to win that ball game, and then going to Cincinnati and beating Joe Burrow and outdueling him. And if he didn't have that silly interception in the fourth quarter, late in that fourth quarter of the ball game, they would have beat them by double digits, and he probably would have been even further in the MVP conversation at that time. And so it was those 2 weeks back to back that made me think the Houston Texans have a franchise QB and they will be set for years to come.
Welcome to the jungle. That's what they play over there in Cincinnati.
Yep.
Hey, that was also the
Who
breakout game
they?
for
Who they?
yeah, who they? Is it who had it first? New
Yeah,
Orleans
that's
or
what It's
Cincinnati?
funny. It's funny when I went there. I was like, I forgot that who day is a thing versus who
Yeah.
that with the New Orleans Saints. But I'm not
Yeah.
sure who had it first. That's some research I got to do.
Yeah, we gotta do some of that. But that was also talking about that game. I know Dion hates this, but because he had him in fantasy. But this was the breakout game for Devin Singletary. And
It
that
was.
game in Cincinnati had, I believe, over 150 yards, correct? And just went crazy that game. And so,
Jesus Christ.
bro, what, bro? I had to bring it up. That was a big game. That who made Dameon Pierce kind of take that back seat, and that's why Dion mentioned earlier in the pod. Just like, what's going to happen to Dameon? And so, I mean, I don't know do you have any insight or do you have any thoughts about what will happen in that running back room? Because I mean, you had a guy in Dameon Pierce who would have had 1,000 yards if he didn't get hurt last year, and you come into this season thinking he's the bell cow, and Devin Singletary is just a compliment, but the way that it's looking, Devin just fits the offensive scheme better as an elusive back compared to that power back style. And so I'm interested to know what do you think is going to happen with Dameon? I know he's on the contract, but any thoughts?
Yeah. So he's still on a rookie deal. It's weird because listen, if he was not on the Houston Texans roster next year, I would not be shocked because like this is their system and he just doesn't fit their system the way that you would have hoped. It doesn't mean he's a bad running back. It's just the way in this Shanahan style offense, you have to kind of be able to follow your blocks. And with Dameon Pierce, he's a little bit more. I'm gonna find one hole and I'm gonna try to run through your face. And so you have to be a little bit more patient, and that's what Devin Singletary has been able to do this year. But you talk about the locker room. Let's say, listen, he's still a second-year player versus Devin Singletary, who's a vet who has played in systems like this. So it's been a little bit more easier of an adjustment for Singletary than it has been Dameon Pierce. And so I do think they'll probably draft a running back for sure because I don't think Singletary is going to be a franchise type of running back for them. But he has had a fantastic year. He also is a free agent, so you have to consider about bringing him back. I've talked to him; he does want to stay. He's on the record for that of wanting to stay. But there will be some decisions to make for sure. If I was a betting man, I think he comes into training camp at Houston Texan, and then we of course see some moves right around once the regular season kind of gets going as far as preseason ends, and somebody will be looking for a talented back. Dameon Pierce is still talented, just hasn't had the success that you would like this year.
You know who's also still talented, Chance? Joe Flacco. You got to see him in person when he came down to Houston. Brr, bro, went stupid against the Texans. Mari Cooper breaks the franchise record for receiving yards in the game. I mean, they could do whatever they wanted down in Houston. Now, mind you, CJ didn't play that game. A lot of people didn't play. I believe Will Anderson wasn't playing that game either. And so now you try to get your lick back. first round of playoffs, wild card weekend. What's the vibes like? Is it a revenge factor right now for the Texans, or is it just like, hey, y'all played the backups a little bit, y'all didn't play the starters? What's the mentality going into this wild card?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't call it a revenge factor because everybody knows that, once again, they were missing the guy who we just talked about makes them go in C.J. Stroud. They were missing both Will Anderson Jr. and Jonathan Bernard. So Joe Flacco was able to have a field day on this Houston Texas defense because he didn't really face a lot of pressure. And so when you add one of the better pass rushing duels in the league, and now Will Anderson Jr. will for sure be back. Jonathan Bernard is still probably a little more questionable. He's still dealing with, I believe, ankle injury. Both of those guys kind of dealt with some ankle issues. But that'll be helpful, having C.J. Stroud back, having Nico Collins back, too. Because you got to think, it was Case Keenum throwing to Robert Woods and Noah Brown. And against that Cleveland Brown secondary, it's good luck with that,
You're
right?
cooked.
So,
You're cooked.
yeah, you're cooked. You're cooked. And they, in fact, were. And so you will have Nico Collins. I think it'll be much more of a ball game. I think the Houston Texans have a chance, but they will be fighting uphill, facing a really talented Cleveland Browns roster.
Yeah, and the thing that I get flashbacks about from watching that game was the Browns' pass rush. And, Keenum really couldn't move at all back there. Now, of course, CJ's mobile, but just the fact that you still got that pass rush. That offensive line is about the same offensive line. And so you still got to fix those holes there with Myles Garrett, with guys like that coming at you. I know you know a guy from the Green Bay day, right? Over there at the defensive line for the Browns right now.
Zadarius Smith. Yep.
Yeah. So you have a connection with him, so you know how good he is on that D-line. So, I'm interested to see how CJ maneuvers around that, because that's something that killed Keenum, and he just couldn't move. He was getting blasted every single time he dropped back to pass. So that should be a good little matchup. I'm excited for that. So what are you expecting, though? How do you think the game script's going to go?
Well, the interesting thing, too, about that game is it is such a stark difference between, obviously, Case Keenum and C.J. Stroud, not just because, C.J. Stroud's better, yes, but the Browns, I don't think they respected Case Keenum in the sense of, okay, look, we're going to, we are going to send a bunch of pressure at you. We don't feel like you're going to push the ball down the field, so we can press up a little bit more on our man. We can do a little bit different things that, with C.J. Stroud, he will punish you if you make a mistake. And so you are going to fear C.J. Stroud a little bit more. Just look at the very first play from the line of scrimmage for the Houston Texans, the last game against the Indianapolis Colts, where they scored on a one-play 75-yard touchdown to Nico Collins. And so I think having that guy who is a little more of a threat will change the way you do things. The Browns are still, once again, they're still very talented, and they're still going to do what they do, but C.J. Stroud ain't Case Keenum, and so that will change some things there. As far as the ball game goes, it's hard for me to just say, the Houston Texans are going to win because once again, I think they're fighting uphill. But I would not be shocked.
Flacco is playing phenomenal right now.
He's playing lights out. But I do think even with the Texans, I think having some of those guys back, being able to say, look, we're not going to let Amari Cooper look like prime Terrell Owens. I think that'll help. Because he had 200. He had 265 yards.
My God.
You
say it out loud, it's really crazy. It's really crazy.
Then he didn't play the next week.
And then he said, look, I feel like I could have went for 300. So the East Texans should take that personally. He actually didn't mean that in a malicious way, but he felt like, hey, they couldn't guard me, which was very true. He was definitely entitled to that opinion. So I do lean Browns, but I would not be shocked if the Texans won that probably.
Well, you talk about Coop, and this is something that I've been wondering if the Texans are going to make this adjustment, but the thing with Sauce Gardner, and you talked about this earlier, the thing with Sauce and Stingley, the conversation was that Sauce follows. Stingley doesn't really follow. Do you think this will be a game where he follows Amari Cooper, or no? You think they stick to the game?
I think they stick to the game plan, but they will be ready to adjust if needed. That's the thing. We felt like if you don't naturally follow a guy, just in general, if you don't really plan to do that, it changes a lot of what you guys do in general, especially you come into training camp saying we feel like we have a good enough corners that we can do what we do as far as taking away this side of the field and doing this on that side of the field. Of course, as a coach, you have to be able to adjust, but that does change the way you do something
everybody
that you
else
don't normally do. Right, change everybody else. So it's not just as simple as just have Derek Stingley Jr. following. It's not that he's not good enough. It's just not as a team. What they always say, do your 111, right? He has a job that he's supposed to do and a responsibility, and so just saying, Cooper's going crazy, just doing this, and just right? Like just tossing a paper and throwing out the window. Like it's not always that simple, but I do think they'll be ready to adjust if needed.
Well, bro, you're about to make a pretty big adjustment in life. Engage, man.
Oh man,
Engage, man. Just tell the people how's it been? Been engaged? What's it been, a month now? A month?
yeah, it's great. Yeah, I guess officially a month now. It's funny to me. I don't think anything changed for me
Okay.
personally. But it is exciting to start like this new chapter of my life. Being with my best friend. Like it's I couldn't ask for anything more than that. And so yeah, man. Like I'm excited. Once we kind of get through with football season, I'll actually be able to enjoy it. I feel like you propose and then you kind of move on. And I've been so focused with work, I haven't been able to kind of actually enjoy this chapter of my life. But I'm excited, man. And so yeah, invitation will be in the mail for you, brother. I got you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Y'all got a date set already?
Nah, not yet. But hey, man, we can do some plus ones too, Dion. I got you, man. Just say the word.
Hey, you gonna turn up, you know what I'm saying? You gonna turn up with the Brody. Yeah, man. Well, I just want to say this though, Chance. Like, it's been so cool just to be a part of your life and you a part of mine, and just seeing the growth between both of us, and knowing where we started to the fact that we're here now. It's kind of surreal to me, and I see your grind from the Green Bay days, from the Arizona State days, and now you're out there in Houston. Like, so proud of you for what you're doing and what you continue to do and killing the game out there. And so thank you for hopping on the pod. I'm blessed to say that you're one of my brothers. And man, I'm just thankful that we're able to go down this journey together. So glad that you're doing what you wanted to do and what you kind of thought about and envisioned. And it's also cool to know that one of my brodies is engaged. So like, we're growing up, right? We're
For
becoming
sure.
adults. So
For
man,
sure.
just thank you, bro. Thank you for everything. And man, I'm just honored. I'm honored to call you a friend. So
I appreciate it, man. And obviously, the feeling is mutual to see us go from Pearland High School and myself at Dawson and continue to climb up the ranks. I remember when you were in Odessa, doing your thing and
shout out West
trying
Texas.
to, yeah, shout out to West Texas, trying to figure out like, like how you want to continue to climb and look at you now, killing it in Austin and becoming when I think about when I want some Longhorns news, I'm not just saying this. I'm gonna go to Cory's page. Let me see what he got cooking, and so it's dope to see. And obviously, we still only going up from here. So appreciate you, my brother.
Of course, Dion.
Guys, all right, guys. Y'all finish get
Yeah.
the waterworks going in here. Y'all relax, okay? Jeez,
Hey, it's
calm
okay to feel your
down.
emotions, Dion. We're
Calm
trying to work on
down.
that
Oh my
transparency,
goodness.
therapy. You know what I'm saying?
All right. No, this
Hey.
is beautiful. This is beautiful. But before we let you go, Chance, we got to ask, with your unbiased opinion, with your amazing takes that you had this pod, who do you have for Rookie of the Year? Puka or
Offense,
Stroud?
I think Stroud. I think
Unbiased opinion, I said.
I mean, yeah, like it's. It'd be like, if I'm being honest, it's literally impossible for me to be unbiased. Like it would be literally impossible. Like,
Hey, and that's what people don't understand, right?
yeah,
I don't understand.
I've been
People don't
covering
get
Stroud
that.
all year. I've been covering Stroud all year. I think what Puka's been doing is amazing. But like, I can't just be like, oh, unbiasedly, right? I
a
saw when he
switch.
got drafted. Yeah, I saw when he got drafted. I've been to all the practices, all the games. I've seen, like, I was there last year and saw what the team was versus now. And so as far as like, obviously the rookie record is impressive, and what he's been able to do, what Puka's been able to do in Los Angeles has been something special. But I mean, CJ Stroud also has the stats. He also has the wins, and so he also has the moments. So I mean, to me, obviously quarterbacks kind of dominate the war season, but with Stroud, it's not like it's Mac Jones, right? Like a couple years ago, Mac Jones kind of just vibing with the team. They happened to win a number of
Pro
games.
Bowler.
Like Stroud has earned it.
Hammer.
And it's not to say that Puka hasn't, but to me, like when I look at the body of work and overall, I'm going Stroud. I almost feel like the Puka thing is like, it's like a look at me, I'm different, right? I feel like there's a lot of people who I think he certainly has an argument, and I get it, but I feel like a lot of people who will lean Puka over Stroud, I think it's more of a, well, quarterbacks always win every year, and because Puka has a case, but I don't think he's done enough to overtake Stroud.
Yeah, I agree. I don't agree with the voters though. Like CJ not being a Pro Bowler is crazy to me. I don't know if there's like comments about that in the locker room at all, or if y'all even talked about it?
Oh yeah,
I know you had a big week, but yeah, they talked about it.
yeah. I mean, yeah, they feel like 7 should have been in, and you could say he had more of a Pro Bowl like season over Patrick Mahomes potentially, and that's not because of Mahomes, but
they're not getting Mahomes.
I just
right. I mean,
what they saw in Mahomes, like they had a bad year.
Right, and it's not Mahomes' fault. His wide receivers have been bad. His wide receivers have let him down, and he's still been able to put up the numbers. They still win the division. Look, you give C.J. Stroud Tyreek Hill, and I bet you can put up Tua Tagovailoa numbers as well. So I think C.J. Stroud certainly had a case to be in, and I think that's just another chip on the shoulder for C.J. Stroud, who
love that.
Continues to strive for greater things.
Will Anderson, defensive rookie of the year?
I think so.
If I'm being honest, all the awards, huh?
Well, it's funny. On the flip side, I wouldn't be mad at Stefanski winning over D'Amico. So like
coach of the year.
So for coach of the he had just many injuries. Right, he had just as many injuries as the Texans did. He's on his backup QB, and they still found a way to win. They won more games than the Texans did, and so I know
QB at this point
with a 4-string QB, and so I wouldn't be mad if Stefanski won, but the other award I think they should win is Nick Caserio for Executive of the Year. The job that he's done, you hit the ball at the park with your 2 first-round picks, and then but to me it's like how he improved around the edges, right? Picking up a number of defensive tackles and Derek Barnett from the Philadelphia Eagles, who now has more sacks with the Texans than the leading sack rusher for the Eagles all season. And so like that's the type of stuff that he's been able to do. And so that's how I would give him credit for being the Executive of the Year. I think he probably deserves that more than D'Amico deserves Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that I think about, like Christian Harris, that draft pick last year, and developing him, and then Henry To'oTo'o, that pick this year that he stepped up. A dude like Cashman, who came out of nowhere, and he's balling out as one of the best linebackers in the league right now, and then signing Jimmy Ward, bringing him over from San Francisco. Like, Caserio been in his bag these last couple of years, and now you're seeing the fruits of it. And were you able to chop it up with him on the sidelines? I saw he was at national championship game last year.
Caserio doesn't talk to anybody.
He don't matter.
Caserio don't talk with nobody. He is built from that Patriot tree.
Okay, yeah.
Shout out to Nick Caserio.
Away from media.
He don't rock with us, man.
I understand. There's some people like that. but I'll rock with you. We rock with you, dog. And so thank you again for hopping on the pod. And
appreciate you for taking the time.
We really appreciate you, dog.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again soon when Texas U of H hoops come on. We'll have to do it again.
Hey, shout out Jamal Shedd. He said he gonna drop
Austin native.
He gonna drop a lot on Texas. Not gonna
Austin
lie.
native.
So I can't wait to see that matchup. And
yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, for sure. I can't wait to talk to you later. All right, G.
For sure. My guy.
Man, I love the Brody. Oh my God. Why can't we get sentimental, D? You trying to cut us off, bro?
No, you can. It's just, y'all was I felt like the third wheel. I was like, oh, they finna cry. I guess I'll give me a little tear in here. Oh.
What's that third wheel?
But no, that was a great
interview, awesome interview. What was your favorite part?
I loved his confidence and the quickness that he said he wanted.
Man, so fast.
To Texas. Couldn't even let you get the question out.
A.D. Mitchell.
Couldn't even let you get the question out.
All right, we got
it. I love his confidence in that. That was definitely my favorite part. Like, he knew exactly what the team he sees on the field and what they could use. I love that part of it. What about
I
you?
think for me, it would have to be, just the way he talked about his relationship with Nico and the players. Like, you can tell that Chance is really in that locker room. And that's something that we kind of go through when it comes to sports anchors and reporters. It's like, we can be a part of that locker room, but like, are you really in the locker room? Do you really have a connection with some of the players? And, he spoke about how, people are going to say the right things about CJ, right? Like, yeah, he's a leader. He's a playmaker. He's our guy. But when you're in the locker room talking to these guys, you can tell who's BSing, who really means what they're saying, or just saying it just because the cameras are on. And so for a Chance to be like, yeah, they're saying it. They're saying that CJ's a guy and he's a captain and he's a leader, but like, you can really feel it. And I think that's what stood out to me in this interview is like, Chance knows that this team really does believe in CJ Stroud and they have a love for him, that it may seem like they're saying all the nice and right things on camera, but they really believe what they're saying. And I think that's great to hear for any Houston Texans fan, to know that the guy at the top, the guy that's a signal caller, the whole team believes in him. And the fact that he's cool with the third string left tackle, like, I mean, that means a lot. That means a lot to the locker room, to know that the rookie that's the face of the franchise is so humble.
Just got here.
So that was cool to hear that. But
no, this was fire. And before we get out of here, have you seen the Shannon Sharp, Cat Williams?
Yeah, it's long though. I've seen half of it, but it's long.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh
but
man,
I just
you haven't
wanted
seen
to
it
know
yet?
your take on it.
Oh,
I
man.
haven't. I'm sorry.
The
every
moment
time
you
I
press
think
play,
about 2
bro,
hours,
lock in.
I
The
get
moment
sad.
you press play, you gotta lock in, bro. He starts popping off before Shannon could even get a question off. Like, just
That was going to be my question. How did you, since you watched half of it, how do you feel like Shannon's interview skills was? I know some people have been killing him, saying he wasn't asking the tough questions or wasn't grilling them on some stuff. How did you feel? Because I don't really want to talk about the Cat Williams stuff, because we've already seen that. But I just want to know your takes on Shannon and him just taking on that task of somebody that is a dominant personality figure, where you can't really get any questions in. You just got to let them go. Or Shannon's attempt to just let them go. Because Shannon says, he's explained that, as soon as Cat walked through the door, he was already going crazy. So how do you feel Shannon did on that?
I mean, it's funny you asked this, because Chance actually made a tweet about this as well. And it's just a fact that I feel like a lot of people are giving Shannon praise for the interview. But when I'm watching it, I'm like, well, he didn't really do much. Yeah, like he didn't really do much. Like Cat popped off. Like, yes, Shannon had a couple questions here and there, but it's not like he was formulating this perfect. He wasn't driving anything. He was a what do they call it? A passenger princess. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he's a little passenger princess while Cat was doing his own thing. And so, I mean, props to Shannon. And this is where I do give him credit, though. Props to Shannon for having that relationship with Cat, so that Cat is even, 1, ready to come onto the podcast, 2, comfortable enough to even say all these things in front of cameras, because we all know a lot of people shut up when the cameras turn on. And so for him to even have that type of relationship with Cat and build that to that extent, I think that's where you give Shannon the credit. You don't really give him the credit for everything Cat says, because Cat was going to pop off no matter what questions Shannon asked. But all the work that Shannon did was probably before the cameras turned on, and that relationship building part of it. I think you got to give Shannon credit for that. And I think that's where a lot of people in our business, they struggle with. They don't build that relationship part of the interview. So then once the cameras do turn on, the interviewee doesn't feel as comfortable as Cat did in that situation. So yeah, props to Shannon for building that relationship so that Cat can be open.
And I was going to ask you about that. Like, is that a key thing when it comes to interviewing? Because of course you interviewed lots of different people, athletes, coaches, regular civilians, I guess you can say. Is that relationship piece important when it comes to
for sure,
interview, to getting the best interview, I guess?
I mean, if I walk into an interview not knowing a kid or not knowing a player, it's just weird, because I'm introducing myself, and then like, now I got to ask you sensitive topic questions, or like I got to dive into your life, even though I just shook your hand 2 seconds ago. And so that is a weird part compared to a guy that I may have been covering all year, or a dude that we had a relationship when he was in high school and now he's in college. I'm covering him in college. Like, those are the type of things that you don't see on camera. And when you see these post-game interviews on TV, when you see these press conference questions, a lot of time, the reason why these players have these answers is because either A, they don't mess with the guy asking the question, or they don't know the guy asking the question. And so they don't seem as genuine. But if you see a couple of these interviews, if you really look, and the players that are joking around or that are having fun post-game, to me, that shows that that interviewer or the reporter has a relationship with the athlete. And so I think that's where you get all the great sound bites. That's when you get all the great theatrics, especially like during basketball when dudes are doing funny stuff behind them in the camera. Like, you do that with people that you're comfortable with. And so I think that's when you see that relationship really showing, when you have those great sound bites from players, because they're very comfortable with whoever's asking them those questions. And so, yeah, that's always my goal. whenever I try to ask players questions. I try to at least take 10 to 15 minutes if I haven't met them yet to just ask them, how you doing? What's your family life? If I know they have a family, or when's the last time they've been home, and stuff like that. And so, I could be able to build that rapport with them outside of whatever sport I'm covering. So they know that, like, I'm a reporter, you're an athlete, but we're both humans at the same time. So I want to show that human side of me, so then they can know that they can trust me, because I'm just a bro. Like, I'm not trying to dive deep into your deepest, darkest secrets. I'm just trying to let the world know the personality that you have. And so once I get that message across, that's how I'm able to get a lot of great interviews. It just depends on how long it takes for me to get that message across, and if they let that guard down for me to have these questions.
But I think we do have to talk about not having a good relationship, because did you see the one where the reporter asked LeBron about Ricky Rubio?
I felt bad for that reporter, though. I did, because to me, he had to ask a question. Like, if you don't know the clip, let's play the clip. Let's play the clip.
Ricky Rubio announced his retirement from the NBA yesterday. What do you think about the career that he has had in the NBA?
I'm not really in the mood to answer that question, but I respect Ricky. Congratulations on a hell of a career, and if I don't seem sincere when you see this video, it's because we got our ass whooped again, and I apologize. So it was actually bad timing on the interviewer asking me this question. It's not me, Ricky. So congratulations.
So as you can hear, Dion, like, he talked about Ricky Rubio retiring. The reason why is because Rubio retired that day. So, I mean, the timeliness of the question made sense. It's like, okay, I need to ask it today because he retired today. So it makes sense. But the other flip side of it, from an athlete's perspective, which you also got to consider, the Lakers just lost. LeBron's not happy. He's probably been pissed off the whole interview. So you probably caught the vibe throughout the whole interview. Like, he's like disappointed and mad. And so asking that question, you're really taking a reach. You really are. Because the vibe. The vibe is they just lost. He's not happy. Now I'm going to ask this question about someone who's not even on his team, that he hadn't been affiliated with for years. But, he's an icon overseas. And so his role is to ask that question in that moment. But it's tough. It's tough on both sides. It's tough on both sides because, you got to read the room, right? You got to read the room. But at the end of the day, you have a deadline to make at the same time. So it's tough, when you don't understand both sides. And so from the outside perspective, a lot of people are saying, like, why would he ask that question? From the inside perspective, I'm like, well, he probably had a deadline. He probably had the story to write that night about Ricky Rubio retiring. So he had to ask it. So,
Yeah, you got to ask one of the biggest faces in the NBA about your international star.
And people don't understand, though, D, about that. Like, but that story outside of the United States was the biggest story in sports in any other country. Like, Ricky Rubio was that big of an international star on the NBA court than you could fathom here in America. He changed so many people's lives. He affected so many young ballers to be able to want to play basketball overseas. And I think that a lot of American people don't really consider that in the context of things. Yeah. Like, it was a huge, that's basically like, I don't want to compare it, but kind of like when LeBron retires, like, it's kind of like a really big deal for us, but like overseas, Ricky Rubio is kind of like their guy. And so, like, I just think that's what you got to put in perspective when it comes to these questions that the reporters are asking. Because, there's a huge story overseas. It may not seem that big over here, but I promise you, overseas, it's world-breaking news. So,
and my last question, when it comes to the Shannon Sharpe interview, would there be anything that you would have done different? I know you haven't seen half of it, but like you say, Shannon didn't.
Really you got to cut him off.
Get to ask many questions.
You got to cut Cat off. At a certain point, like, so you can keep the train going. I think that's what I would have done. If you just let him go, like, yeah, it's cool to have sound bites. But that's something that Shannon prides himself on. Like, Shannon prides himself on keeping all the cuts in there and not cutting anything out. And you can hear the production assistant, talk and ask questions to Cat throughout the interview, because Shannon prides himself on being authentic. And so that's the way his podcast is. So I can't blame him for not cutting him off, because Shannon prides himself on being, what you see is what you get, and that's what we got. We got Cat Williams going crazy for about 3 hours. And you got to respect Shannon for not cutting anything off or cutting him off or not cutting anything out of the video. But instead, just letting it all run. So that's the way his style is. And you have to respect that. But if it's me interviewing, I definitely would have been like, all right, let's go back. Let's get back on track. You talk about this. Can we dive into more of this? So, yeah, that would be the one difference I would make.
Got you. Well, look, man, it was a solid episode. I know we're running a little bit over, but I think there was
awesome
just some great
stuff,
combos from Chance to that about Shannon and just interviewing.
I'm just excited for basketball season. We're going to start talking about basketball a little bit more. Texas basketball, of course. Women's basketball, when it comes to the Longhorn, Madison Booker just won Player of the Week for the Big 12 Conference. Dion, bro, she averaged 16.5 points, 9 rebounds, 6.5 assists. She's a true freshman. True freshman. Now, mind you, Roy Harmon is out for the season. So now she has to step up and be that point guard for the team. And she's doing that phenomenally. And I just can't wait to keep seeing her growth because, she's so young. And so she has so much room to grow. And for her to already be putting up these type of numbers, it's kind of crazy. And it proves why she's 5-star, Mississippi Gatorade Player of the Year. Like, everything makes sense. So, yeah, women's basketball, men's basketball for Texas. Going to be talking about that a little bit more as these weeks move on. So, hopefully we can get some interviews about that as well. And just thank y'all again for listening to the pod, as always. Dion, any final thoughts?
It's a new year, so if you get some new goals. If there's anything that you didn't get to write off for last year, write it at the top, knock it out. And for this new year, just try to be grateful for all the little moments, the good and the bad. And man, make 2024 your year for sure. I know a lot of y'all are coming out the holiday season. Y'all are finding out that your shorty that you had a crush on, she got a man, she got a baby mama, she got a kid. You're like, damn, I was trying to get the little matching PJs, So I know some of y'all coming out the holiday season heartbroken, but fellas, man, just keep your head on. Look, you got one more holiday.
You gotta fight through. You gotta fight through February. You gotta fight through.
Yeah, we got another holiday where the girl you've been crushing on Instagram, she's gonna drop another pic, and you're gonna be sick. So, once we get out this, start re-looking for something new, man. It's a tough time if you're thinking you finna talk to somebody, you finna get that shot going, you dribbling, you be like, oh yeah. And she dropped that little pic on the gram.
She still cuffed to that dude. To that bum.
She still cuffed to. Oh dang, you had a kid this whole time. Yeah. So, just keep your head up, man. Make 2024 your year.
All right. As always, you know how we end this mug.
YERRRR.